The last journey of a Viking king. Northern England. A land of endless skies, lonely hills, and forgotten ruins. To most travelers, Stainmore is little more than a quiet stretch of wilderness. But beneath its windswept landscape lies the memory of kingdoms, empires, and men who shaped Britain's destiny. For centuries, countless peoples crossed these moors. Each left behind a different name, a different story, and one unforgettable legend. By the middle of the 10th century, political turmoil had engulfed northern Britain. The Viking kingdom of York stood on the verge of collapse. Its ruler, Eric Bloodaxe, had lost nearly everything. Driven from his throne, he gathered a small band of loyal warriors and set out across the desolate highlands. His destination lay far to the west, where allies across the Irish Sea might offer refuge and the chance to reclaim his kingdom. It was a desperate gamble. One final march into an uncertain future. But fate had chosen another ending. Before reaching safety, Eric was betrayed. Somewhere along this lonely route, the last great Viking king of Britain met his death. Today, a simple stone monument beside the old road is all that remains to mark the place where his journey ended. Yet the road beneath that monument carries a story even older than Eric himself. Long before Viking kings rode across these hills. Long before Saxons settled the land. Roman engineers had carved a highway through this wilderness. For nearly 1,000 years, travelers, merchants, soldiers, and kings relied upon this remarkable road. It connected distant fortresses, thriving cities, and military outposts across northern Britain. Generations passed. Empires rose and fell. Yet the road endured. Even after the Roman Empire abandoned Britain in the early 5th century, its highways continued to guide those who came after. People no longer possessed the engineering knowledge required to build such roads. Still, they admired them, used them, and wondered about the civilization capable of creating monuments that seemed almost impossible. Even in the modern age, many British highways continue to follow these same ancient routes, preserving the invisible footprint of Rome beneath layers of asphalt. Although later rulers often looked back to the Roman Empire with admiration, they could never immediately recreate its achievements. The great cities declined. Stone construction became rare. Centuries would pass before Britain once again witnessed architecture on a similar scale. And even longer before another empire emerged with the power, organization, and ambition once possessed by Rome. For those who inherited its ruins, the Roman world had become both a memory and a mystery. When the empire vanished. When the Roman Empire withdrew from Britain, it did not leave behind a peaceful kingdom. It left behind silence. The mighty legions disappeared. Imperial governors returned to the continent. The authority that had ruled Britain for nearly 4 centuries simply faded away. Without Rome's protection, cities slowly emptied. Stone buildings crumbled. Markets that had once connected Britain to the wider world fell quiet. The great civilization that had dominated the island became little more than scattered ruins. For generations afterward, people lived among the remains of an empire they could no longer rebuild. Legends would later transform this period into an age of noble heroes and glorious kings. Ancient poems celebrated fearless warriors defending their people against impossible odds. Yet archaeology paints a very different picture. The Britain of the 5th, 6th, and 7th centuries was a land struggling to survive. It was a world where old systems had collapsed, but no new order had yet replaced them. The organized armies of Rome were gone. Instead of thousands of disciplined soldiers marching beneath imperial banners, small war bands now controlled the countryside. Sometimes fewer than 100 warriors could decide the fate of an entire region. Power no longer belonged to empires. It belonged to whoever could gather enough loyal followers to defend their land. Even the word kingdom can be misleading when describing this era. Many rulers governed little more than a fertile valley, a cluster of villages, or the ruins of an abandoned Roman settlement. Their influence was measured not by grand cities or monumental architecture, but by personal loyalty and military strength. Yet Britain was far from empty. Across the island, new communities began to emerge from the ashes of the old world. Some carried fragments of Roman traditions. Others preserved customs that had existed long before the first Roman soldier ever arrived. Nowhere was this contrast more visible than along the northern frontier. The open moorlands became more than geographical boundaries. They marked the meeting point of two very different civilizations. To the east, Germanic settlers established new villages beside rivers and fertile plains. Some descended from former Roman auxiliaries. Others had crossed the North Sea seeking opportunity in a fractured land. Over time, their settlements grew larger. Simple farming communities developed into centers of authority. Archaeologists have uncovered burial mounds filled with finely crafted weapons, jewelry, and ceremonial treasures, clear evidence that powerful local rulers were beginning to emerge. These princely graves reveal the birth of new kingdoms. A new political landscape was taking shape. The Roman world had ended. But another Britain. One built upon entirely different foundations. Was beginning to rise.